on gender-related topic, and thank everyone for coming this morning.
Thank you. Javid, I know that you are someone who doesn't need much introduction in this community, but this is a traditional question that we ask all our guests. Well, just one before you. Who is Javid Gouliyev, in your own words?
Well, that's. I think I'm a banker, so primarily a banker, and have been in the banking for I think now nearly 30 years, and started my journey with HSBC Bank, and that's where I met some of the people in the audience, and then marched on and basically been working for a few banks. For the last 7 years plus, I've been with Pasha Bank. That's on one front. On the other front is I'm well, can I say Bakuvian? With everything from the family to friends, and I hope I'm known in this market not only as a banker, but also as a good friend. And as a person who people can rely not only when they need financing, but when they need a good advice, I'm always there for them.
And may I add, a proud father of 2 daughters?
A proud father of 3, including 2 daughters, yes.
Including 2 daughters, exactly. Javid, this is the topic that we were hoping to cover today, and since you're a banker and you've been a banker for a long time, and we were thinking about talking financial inclusivity, right? And there are many papers about it, why it's important, what the financial inclusivity is. But I think the best explanation I was able to come from my perspective is that 100 years ago there was a Ahmed Ağaoğlu who wrote a book that had a radical idea that if half of the population is not free, the country cannot be free, and that he was referring to women. If we take that idea and apply it to the financial inclusivity, and let me rephrase it as a question to you, how do you think a country can be financially independent and prosperous if a sizable portion of the population doesn't have a financial independence and doesn't have an access to the financial services?
Well, that's a very good question. I think it might be a bit less about gender, more about evolution of a specific country or a specific industry, like the industry for financial services. We may debate, we may talk, we may discuss that, but that should start with a few, let's call them hygienic actions. I think first of all, what we can see from the state, from the government, in terms of encouraging that. I think the competition is a very important thing, and I think if we talk specifically about Azerbaijan, one of the, in my humble view, one of the most competitive sectors in this country is banking and generally financial services. If you look at the reach, how far the banking goes, banking sector covers all of the regions of Azerbaijan. You can find it, you may not find it in a remote villages. But if we're talking, for example, I'll just jump on maybe on a specific example to give you, sort of a vision how far we can go. Let's talk about the agro, for example, and let's talk about hazelnuts, which is a major agro commodity in the northwestern part of the country. Now, people in the way the services are being delivered to the people in the remote villages, for example, in Zakatala or Gah regions, are very simple. Banks are financing off-takers and companies who process and export hazelnut. In order to do that, they basically have to come to the bank, receive a loan, receive a down payment from the companies like Ferrero. Ferrero is the largest hazelnut off-taker globally. go out to those villages and make sure that they pay for the hazelnut, and it actually includes not only males but also females, female farmers or those households who basically grow hazelnut. Maybe that example shows that there's nothing there's nothing impossible in terms of to bring that as a part of inclusivity, financial inclusivity. That example, I think, may be relevant to show you or to show all of us that financial services actually are not that far away. However, there should be a program. There should be, we can call it an action plan. There might be a policy which would basically not only encourage it but make it a part of everyday business. So I think if you ask me, there are those elements, there are those bits and pieces of things which you can call financial inclusivity, but maybe it's currently not super high on the agenda of the players, of the regulators. So doing it a bit more structurally, doing it systemically, I think would help to basically promote this theme, and I think more importantly, get it implemented.
Well, it's interesting that you touched upon it. That brings me to the second question. And obviously the government has a big role in this, but what do you think the private sector can do? And especially institutions like yours, banks, financial institutions in general. What's their role? Is it opening more branches, or is it increasing the financial literacy? What kind of concrete actions they could do to further this?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think one big advantage of private sector above the state sector is that it's much more flexible. So they don't need to go through a longer bureaucratic process to get things done, to get it planned, and more importantly, to get it implemented. I think when we're talking about the gender and the financial exclusivity, I think we should speak, maybe primarily we should speak about diversity. For me, a gender theme is a bigger part of the diversity. Gender is one, maybe more important, but one of the dimensions or one of the elements of the diversity which private companies have, should have, or may have, depending on how they treat that issue internally. It definitely should start from the top, so it should be promoted in order to have to make sure that things are happening. I think that along with the gender, it's important to look at such factors as religion, as age. I think we are seeing those elements as well more and more often. But ultimately, I believe when it comes to financial inclusivity, in order and gender aspect to it, I believe as a banker, I believe in a system. So I believe these things have to get done both systemically and in a planned manner. Again, provided that this is a part of the agenda. Once this is happening, this would be done. Now, if you look, I think it may sound a bit arrogant, but I think ultimately the first thing to do is to not discriminate and to have equal opportunities. So when we talk about Pasha Bank, I can say maybe we do not have a loan which is called a loan for female entrepreneurs. But I'm pretty sure it's absolutely equal opportunity. So we don't discriminate based on who manages or who owns the business. Male doesn't have a higher score than female. Maybe it's as little as this, but I think in today's reality, this helps indirectly. So we don't discriminate. We create equal opportunities, and I think this is very good for a start, I believe.
No, that's absolutely, and obviously banks are dealing with the applications that come to them, right? That their loan application has to come to them for them to review, and that's another question: how to encourage, more female entrepreneurs or members of the minorities, religious minority, ethnicity, etc. But So your answer suggests that it's there are two views on this. So your answer suggests that it's as long as we don't discriminate, this ratio or this equal opportunities provided. Do you think maybe it's a bit should be a bit more intentional in terms of, I don't know, tracking how many loans have been made, etc. Having the numbers to back it up in a sense.
I think that's a good challenge. I think we at Pasha Bank are past don't discriminate. We are more about equal opportunities. You ask me, yes, I think we can do more, or we should do more to have that. I think our focus as an institution has been more about promoting women empowerment firstly within inside the organization. So we wanted to make sure that non-discrimination, those equal opportunities, the gender-related agenda is basically primarily to promote women within Pasha Bank or within Pasha Group more broadly. So now, as you ask, I think it's a very right thing, and for me, it's a very right challenge to start promoting that more towards our clients. And I would say primarily maybe to our small and medium customers. I would maybe, while on the topic, I want to compliment those women, those ladies who are, you're seeing more ladies now, primarily in the roles, say, in finance, for example. You see a lot of ladies. And I can, from my experience, it might be subjective, but that's sort of a trend, where you see a woman leading a finance function. You always know that financial reports are submitted in a timely manner. They are more accurate on average, without discrimination to male financiers. And they also hear you better. In terms of they don't waste time arguing. However, women can be a tougher opponent when it comes to sort of tougher discussions, because that's a part of our job as when you talk about the money. But ultimately, I take it as a challenge, to make sure that we in our, because we at Pasha Bank, we're a corporate bank, so we look at primarily into how we provide finance and banking services and products to legal entities and entrepreneurs. So let me take it as a challenge, and let me include it now as a part of my agenda as Pasha Bank's CEO to make sure that we have a dedicated service to promote this both Baku, Absheron and regions for female entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you for that, and I will be following up on that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You touched upon very interesting when you were talking about the employees, right? And probably there is some statistics, but those are not as important as, I guess, providing equal opportunity, which doesn't mean they will get equal results, right? Everyone has the different potential, and I think everyone would agree that when we're talking about diversity and opportunity, it's just that, providing an equal opportunity. So how is the hiring decisions? Is there any intentionality to it? I don't know, blind CVs. How does it work? Is it normal? People apply and then get interviewed in a normal process, or is there some special kind of tools or some special, I don't know, mechanics of making sure that there is no discrimination?
I think that's
intentional or not.
That's a good question, Julia, because let me jump on statistics. I think statistics would speak for itself. 3 years ago, Pasha Bank had 50-50 split between female and male employees. Now, female employees are 41% of Pasha Bank. Now, why? And this is happening when we basically, for the last 3 to 4 years, we basically doubled in size. Now, I link it more. We have what we call sort of those evolving job families, primarily in technology, for example, digital engineering. We have such relatively new job families as cybersecurity, infosecurity, fraud management. We have evolving theme around risk management, for example, in risk modeling. We have data science and data governance. So when you look at those jobs, fortunately or unfortunately, I think for the sake of this discussion, unfortunately, we are seeing more male candidates both applying and filling for these positions. However, you know, we have that definition within the organization which is called business critical positions. Business critical positions are currently around, you know, let me say 30-35% of the bank employees, and it's not necessarily managers or executives. It's also people like experts, senior specialists. We currently have 30% of those positions filled in by females. I think it's not small. Yeah, it's not small. Yeah, another part of the statistics, we have 135 leaders of the organization. So from the position of team leader to the board member, we have 28% of those positions held by women. Again, it's not that I'm proud to say it, but for me, it's about equal opportunities. While there is still a much higher proportion of males, I think this, you know, we can see at least, you know, we are keeping that ratio at, you know, in a situation where the bank is still in a growing mode. We see that ladies take that position. What I'm specifically proud of is that we have that program, you know, because technological progress makes you reconsider some of the jobs. They either become redundant or they become less significant. So we have that program internally, you know, which is about reskilling and upskilling. And basically we then measure how many of the vacancies which we have, including this new technology-related jobs, are filled by internal candidates. And it's about 35 to 40% of those vacancies which are filled by internal candidates through what we call boot camps, academies, and schools. So we create opportunities, because we at Pasha Bank, we are saying we're a family, we're a business family. We don't grow children, but we grow business, and we want to do it sustainably, and we want to do it in a way that all stakeholders, you know, I have a few stakeholders, my shareholders, my corporate center, central bank, regulators, but more importantly, my team. So when we say we're a family, we want to give those equal opportunities to everyone to get retrained, upskilled, or reskilled. 50% of those vacancies are taken by ladies, are taken by females. So this is for me a sort of a special pride, because then when we talk about equal opportunities, 50% is exactly about equal opportunities. And I'm happy to see that, you know, women in Pasha Bank are living to that challenge, want to take that challenge, and then successfully fill those vacancies, which are again primarily in what we call a new evolving job families. Primarily in areas like technology, like IT, you know, like cybersecurity.
I like very much your answer. I was when you started to talk about those jobs, I was thinking about the pipeline issue. Most of the time, this mismatch in the ratio between male and male. Females are explained that with the pipeline issue that there are no people applying with the right qualifications or the right education. So you kind of, and I was going to ask you, what are you doing to fix it? And you already thought about it, and there's an internal upscale system upskill system that you are implementing. That's very good, and it's very encouraging. But also, I wanted to pick up on one of your lines when you said that the ladies take up those challenges. And I think this is to disperse the myth that we are not good at tech, or we are not interested in tech. So when the opportunity comes, and female employees do take the challenge and upskill accordingly. So
no, that's a myth. That's absolutely a myth. We have that, like many of us know that, you know, on a corporate level, we have those internal trainers. In Pasha Bank, we have, I would say, 2/3 of the trainers are actually ladies. And we have, specifically in IT and technology, we have one lady who is sort of a star. She's actually started with what we call IT operations. And now she moved into the digital engineering. And despite the fact that she's been in digital engineering for less than a year, she's now lecturing both her colleagues from her team in digital engineering, as well as newcomers on the subject. So that's I think that speaks for itself.
It does, and the focus on digital, I think it's very important because it also comes to improving. One of the tools of improving financial inclusivity is making it less expensive for the bank to reach out to people in the most remote places, because it may not be financially sustainable to open a branch there, but if there's access, if people can apply online for a card or for a loan, that also improves the reach of the bank and improves the financial inclusivity at the growers of hazelnut, for example. When you were talking about that, that was interesting. How the system works? So do you dispatch people? How do you find those businesses?
Well, okay, good. Let it not be a part which is called advertising of Pasha Bank and its products, but basically, yeah, I can again proudly say that this bank has been at the forefront of a digital, in a good sense, a revolution, and now more of an evolution in the services in the financial services market, which was started in 2017 and 2018, and in 2019 we launched what is called distant account opening. So it's online account opening. Ultimately, now this is what is being a part of every major bank in this country, and also something which is regulator also sort of put a formal framework for. But more importantly, when we put ourselves a very aggressive challenge that by the end of 2020 we wanted 75% of all the transactions. And when I'm talking about banking transaction, I mean every transaction except cash, to be done through what we call automated channels. So for us, our automated channels is primarily internet banking and mobile app. Of course, 2020 was mainly associated with the pandemic, with the COVID, and it did unfortunately help in a way. But when people ask, did you know? Of course, we didn't know, but we've been more prepared. So now 99.9% of all of the transactions coming from our corporate and our SME customers are being done electronically. Now, with some of the businesses, especially with owners and general managers, we had to, it was a sort of a pep talk. So when they've been coming and saying that our financial guys are basically resisting that move, and that implies both in terms of gender, as been males and females. So we sold them on a simple fact that when your accountant or your finance guy tells you he or she goes to the bank, that's usually half a day. It's might be a bit of a time wasted in public transport, in taxis, shuttling, and then you actually don't know what exactly is happening on the way, because people are intent, sometimes intend to do other things except only trip to a bank. So that was a very simple, maybe a very basic, but that worked very well. So we basically encourage them, because it's not only about people in finance. When you do transactions smaller or larger size, doesn't matter. Owners and general managers and CEOs also have to switch. They have to start using those technological solutions in order to approve them. So again, about equal opportunities. It doesn't matter what's your gender. It doesn't matter whether you're a big or small player. This digital experience is something which people perceived well. Maybe it has become much more, in demand simply because COVID hit us all globally, not only in Azerbaijan. But I think now this is a part of normal banking globally, not in Azerbaijan. I think what's more important is that we have been the first bank in the region which created what we call digital finance platform. So we now basically underwrite the loans up to 250,000 manat. This is not micro. This is basically a loan to an average small and medium company, based on some financial and non-financial data, where we basically provide a yes or no answer, or what we call time to yes, within less than 24 hours. And this had basically a very quick growth. Within less than 2 years, we've done what we call MVP, minimum viable product. We launched it exactly 2 years ago, and a hard launch was about a year ago. So it has a very rapid growth, a very high demand, and we will be bringing more products onto this platform, because ultimately all you do is basically, if you are a company of a good financial standing with a decent credit history or no history at all, you may not have credit history, you apply for the first time, you have a financial partner who can come again without any discrimination and based on equal opportunity basis, and apply for the loan and get it, provided you get that score. So the experience we create is, while it's again more about equal opportunities, I think this is exactly where female entrepreneurs, female CFOs, female finance directors and chief accountants can count on a product which is absolutely universal. I don't call it diversified or diverse, but this is a product which appeals to the needs of every company. Again, doesn't matter who owns or runs that company in terms of the gender, age, or religion. So again, it's becoming a part of a let me call it hygienic approach. This is what we should have, but that's the experience which basically makes it easier and more accessible for female entrepreneurs to approach.
That's very interesting. I think you touched upon an interesting point there about, is it automated, the answers to these applications? Or is
it is automated, yes. You get a yes or no via email or SMS. But if there are any questions, there are people behind that system. So they reach out. We have this green lane, yellow lane, and red lane. Red lane is a hard no. Okay. In yellow lane, you basically have to ask some additional questions or get some additional information. So we always have people behind. They would reach out and they ask you. But ultimately, if you fit within the scoring, it's all automated. So you have Asan Imza to sign. We have a new electronic signature, which is called SIMA. So ultimately, your experience is one-to-one digital. You don't have to come to the bank to get the money. However, what we make sure to do is that this is a legitimate business. Data is, so we do, within those 24 hours, a part of our internal due diligence or underwriting is basically make sure all of this is legitimate. But yes, this is end-to-end digital.
The reason I was asking is because one of the ways, one of the ways of eliminating hidden biases, obviously not everyone is discriminating purposefully. Hidden biases is to eliminate the human contact, or eliminate the someone making a judgment, because that judgment will be based on biases. Will have them. To my mind comes the blind audition in orchestras. They used to be always male dominated, but as soon as they closed the curtain and players were playing behind the curtain, all of a sudden it's a 50% female. So that's what I was asking: is it automated, or is it? Is there any window for the bias to creep in?
Yeah, I think no, and this is not a bias. This is possibly this is more of a scientific mathematical approach, because bankers like figures, so we rely on those what we call factors or sub-factors in order to make that decision. What I want to tell, and this was the reason why I was smiling, but is that digital platform as a team. As you know, Pasha Bank is using Agile as a way of working. We basically have two parts of organization, what we call traditional part and Agile part. Digital finance platform is an Agile team, what we call, they are a chapter, a team which is called a chapter. A chapter lead is a lady, and out of 12 people, 7 are ladies. So that platform is ultimately run by ladies. Why I'm proud to say that? Because you know who makes decision? It's the machine. Yeah. It's what we call the engine. It's an algorithm, and you know who trains that system? 12 people, 7 of whom are ladies. Okay. So I don't know what exactly they train and how algorithm is changing. But ultimately, it's been growing fast. It had its own ups and downs, some downs as well, but ups as well, because we are doing what we call retraining the engine based on the statistics. I don't want to call it a cage, but it is a major challenge, I think, for a lady who wants to grow or wants to be, especially wants to be C-level. Looking at Azerbaijan, the Azerbaijani business scene, we still see a lot of successful women who I can see who can juggle those those balls very well, and they should be the best example that this is possible. However, these situations I think are pretty much specific to your life story, but it doesn't mean it should be a limitation. I'll tell you one thing. We as Pasha Bank, we have this, we are sponsoring and conducting She Leads conference every year. And last year we ran it more for Pasha Group companies. We have what we call financial and non-financial companies. So it's been, we've seen everybody from Pasha Bank to Bravo and a few other companies in our large group. And there was one lady who was working at one of the group companies. I think she was a manager in Pasha Insurance. And she asked me a question. She asked me, she said that she's married with 2 kids. She tries to grow. She said she started as a junior. She's now, I think, head of division. And she said her next step in her professional life is to do MBA, and this is a way how she thought, that's what she shared with the audience and with me when I was at the panel, that this is the way she wants to grow professionally and make her career. And then she basically said, what would be your advice, because she has to she's got that challenge. She's got 2 kids, she's got parents. She said she needs to take specific care about one of her parents. She says she's got job, which is not necessarily 9 to 6, and she wants also that professional development. So I told her, listen, you have to sit down with your husband and tell him that he has to offload parts of that pressure off you. And then she said, okay. So she was puzzled in a way. Maybe she didn't expect that. But then she said, can I ask you a question after all of this over? I said, sure, you can. And then when the event was over and she came in and said, my husband is your employee. So he is a relationship manager in our sales, and she said she's working Saturdays. Don't make him work on Saturdays. Oh. And I said, okay. So I had to do that mentoring to him later, which was, I tried to make it diplomatic. No, she was, for me what it shows is that lady, maybe in a few years, maybe not at C-level, but the way she sees herself, head of department, director, senior director, and she was very dedicated, so she didn't stop, but she also sort of, in a good sense, she dragged me into that discussion. This is a family discussion, and we're living in Azerbaijan. So I couldn't tell him or instruct him to do this way, but I just talked to him and said that I do believe, frankly, that you spend a part of that Saturday for work purposes. I wasn't completely convinced. Relationship managers are actually spending, relationship managers in Pasha Bank are people, who in a dedicated way spend time, I don't want to say 24/7, but sometimes with the demanding customers, with some capricious customers, it's also 24/7. So I understand, and they spend a part of our Saturday. I spend a part of my Saturday meeting customers. It's absolutely normal. So I asked him to sort of try to balance it, and he basically acknowledged that it's a challenge, because staying with 2 kids sometimes, who are like, I don't remember, 5 or 7, something like that, is a challenge to him. So I admitted to that. I told him that, listen, I'm a father of 3, so maybe I can share some of those best practices. He never came back to me. I never followed up. Maybe it's not good on my side, but yeah, that might be an example of why I'm still a believer with all of those tradition and custom and expectation and dominance in those views which may come from the males. It's absolutely not impossible for the ladies to see it. And actually, I think, I also maybe as a good example, we have within our group what we call Leading Lights. Leading Lights is a program in Pasha Bank, in Pasha Group, mainly now on a for covering financial companies, financial service companies, which basically are promoting future talent, developing and promoting future talent. So, in a second cohort, we had a group of 5, of whom 2 are ladies. And it's not that I'm promoting it, but when I said the first group from Pasha Bank was absolutely male dominant, And what's given me a basis to basically say that we need to have ladies there is the results, because it's based on certain results. They go through, an online-based, basically, it's sort of interview questionnaire, and ladies dominated. It's basically a box called 9 grid, and it's the far right part of that grid, of that square, where the best results are. And it's basically more than 50% are ladies, in that specific part of that grid. So, it was a no-brainer to say that ladies should be represented in our second group. And, we had a person from a compliance function, we had a person from the business segment, and, when we formally launched a couple of weeks back that program, and, we do it formally. There is a group leadership, there is a company leaderships. We've seen only 3 ladies, 2 of them been from Pasha Bank. So, it gives me again a sense that we're doing the right thing. And more importantly, ladies want to grow, women want to make career, and females want to become C-level. So I think leaders of those organizations, primarily in the private sector, because as I said, private sector are more flexible by definition, should be promoting it.
That's an excellent point. So, and this would be last follow-up question before we open to the floor. So would you say that that was an issue of the females being qualified but failing to raise their hand and to apply to these programs?
Maybe I'll start with a different point. There have been one survey run a few years back which basically said women in finance are better fit, better risk, because they are less emotional when they make decisions. That's been based on, I think, US, UK, Europe. I'm not sure about other parts of the world, but they basically said women are better risk takers because they look at things less emotionally when at work. For me, it was a revelation. I think in some instances I see that also within Pasha Bank.
No?
Not only risk averse because our business is basically taking risk. I think that what strikes me most is that they basically make decisions less emotionally. Because I'll tell you something, when there are decisions with the customers, I sometimes tend to do them emotionally based on other very good history, for example, so I can ignore some signals, some what we call early warning signals. We, sometimes you have a strange relationship with the customer, so you don't want to extend credit because you don't have the comfort. Ladies seem, based on that survey, look into facts, look into figures, look into analysis more than males. What it tells me is that having ladies, having female in an organization, especially in the decision-making process, would make sure that you are making a balanced decision. You hear the different voices. And also, it's from my experience, not necessarily from my CEO or senior manager experience, but I've been seeing that a male-dominated group of people making decisions usually follow its leaders. It's very seldom that they try to either oppose, or they just basically either take it for granted, or even if they have a different view, they would rather say, okay, that's okay, that's good enough. With the ladies in a decision-making group, in a decision-making governance body, you always have a decision, and again, based on my experience, and possibly a different view. Again, you making a balanced decision, which is good for you, which is good for your business. I don't know whether I answered your question, Ria, but I tried to give a.
You did actually, and also I think that's the best. That's the best argument for the diversity, actually. Different views, different, because we all see world from our own prisons. I think we can open to the floor. We have a microphone here. If someone, Jamila, can you? Yes. Okay. I think there was a question. No?
No question? I have a question.
Yes.
I also would like to use this chance to talk about this topic, with Javid. Thank you very much. It's good. And while listening to your conversation, this dialogue, I was thinking on how we can, as a chamber, spread it over and make it really more accessible as a discussion to larger community, because I think this is something we have to talk about, and hear about various very funny and not very funny, but sometimes sad statistics, and think about it. At least we're not here to resolve global issues, but we're here to talk about them and think about them. In Azerbaijan, we know, and we heard it from the Minister of Social and Labor, from Sahil Babayev, that the pay gap in Azerbaijan is awful. It's actually astonishing. And even I was surprised with the statistic he was giving. There's a very large list of reasons why it is happening and why it's still there. And that goes from psychological differences between women and male when they negotiate the salaries, to perception of the male workers and the talents that the company wants to grow and the confidence they have in the etc. etc. But to go down to the question, so what's the situation with the pay gap within Pasha Bank or Pasha Group? I don't know which one you prefer to take. And first, whether it exists. Second, whether you monitor this. And third, your view, why it is still there, and how we can, what should be done actually to, let's say, narrow the gap.
No, I'll speak for Pasha Bank. I don't know what pay gap is at Pasha Bank. I don't know. I don't confront that problem. We don't have that problem. We pay to our people, and this is again about equal opportunities. And we, long ago passed over this. Don't discriminate. It's about equal opportunity. We pay to the talent without any dependence on whether this is a female or male. We pay the money, which this market values them for. So for us, we have those grades, and for each grade we have a pay, a pay range. So and we have a performance management system, like many of companies in this audience should have. And then we basically look at the score. We look at the score. We look at what we call soft skills, competences. We look at hard skills on what we can call financial and non-financial results, which are not related to competences, and we make a decision. Never ever in my 7 years at Pasha Bank we've come across the case. It's not ideal, but just I never came across the case where we had to look if things are different for a female as compared to a male at the same position. We're doing salary surveys like many of you do, and we have here other chambers who do that. We have commercial surveys which we do. I can proudly say when I look at junior positions at Pasha Bank, and here they are dominated by females, primarily in areas like operations. For example, we're talking about, we call it virtual branch. It's our call center. It's our operation, so it's payments, cards. It's predominantly female populated. So when you look at that, our pay for the junior position is one of the highest in the market, in financial services, in what we call peer groups. So for me, it's no discrimination. It's actually that for us, again, as I said, I truly believe we're past that stage. We don't separate in no way. If this is a female candidate or a female employee versus male candidate or male employee, it's based on performance. First of all, as a team, as an organization, as a bank, and secondly, your individual score. So that's the way we look at the people. What can we do more about doing that on a more global scale for Azerbaijan, for both private and for both private and state sector, is maybe take the companies like Pasha Bank or like Pasha Group or any other group. Absolutely, this is not absolutely exclusive, and I do sincerely believe in that. And basically promote it through those, public platforms, including the chambers, including, those regular meetings, meetups, or roundtables, which both business and chambers hold with the government, and maybe through, I still believe in it, through those conferences and seminars, maybe even like today's, maybe have more people from the government, more male CEOs, maybe, in order to make sure that they at least hear it and also try to put it, as a part of their agenda when it comes to the pay gap or pay equality.
That's a good answer. I think, Teva, if I may, in some countries they require publish. So basically naming and shaming, and sometimes it's working. I don't know, maybe that can be suggested as well. Because if you don't monitor it, if you don't publish it.
Good morning. I apologize for running late. I think I'm one of those parents who's trying to keep a balance between the home and work. So I had to attend my son's event at school. And he kind of was out there for 5 minutes, but it was super important for me to stay next to him. So that's where I was. I apologize for running late. I think what I wanted to do, a couple of things. First of all, just a reflection on, I'm Zarina Zainalova, Azerbaijan CEO. A reflection on the question that you asked, or kind of the insight that you provided with regard to pay gap. I spent about 10 years in Houston working for BP, and one thing that really I found interesting is that at the end of each salary review, the HR function was required to run, as part of affirmative action plan, to run analysis before it's finalized and approved, to see if there's a gap between males, females, as well as minorities and white Americans, white Caucasians, etc. Right? And it was interesting for me. First of all, it was mandatory. You had to do it before the whole thing was approved. It was required by legislation. But second, I thought was quite interesting. Out of 10 cases, in 9 cases, there was a gap. So you had to work really hard to actually start closing that gap. And it's not just with regard to male-female, but also with regard to minorities. But the reality was, because initially I thought, what's the purpose, right? But with time it was very obvious that despite the fact, despite all the best efforts that Javid described, in terms of, everyone having the right intention, etc., etc., there was still, when you were running it, there was a gap. And then the HR function had to put together a specific plan to start closing that gap. So I think there is a mechanism, in particular in the world of artificial intelligence, but you have to be intentional about it. I mean, in that case, it's required by legislation, but it's possible, right? And there's so much data around artificial intelligence, etc., so you can do this. So that's kind of just to share some of the perspective. But as far as the question is concerned, I think as I was listening to your experience, and clearly I definitely will be going back to my organization to kind of start thinking about a few things that you were offering. Part of, I guess, kind of it would be interesting to get your insights or perspective, Javid, is that how do you start engaging at the middle managers level across the organization, or at the initially even the first team leaders level? How do you work with that the next level in the organization and the next level to ensure that they create the inclusive environment? Because at the C level, it's fantastic to see what you have. And I know exactly the environment that you're trying to create or have been creating at Pasha Bank, and I do believe it's quite an exceptional role model. But the question is, what do you do with the next level and the next level to create that same inclusive environment? It's just, again, a question, and the kind of reflection point would be interesting to hear.
That's a very good question. I think I'll start a bit different, Olivia. Zarin Khanum is that's one of those ladies in Azerbaijan who, whom I think we should do a case study on in terms of how she balances that work life, and as a CEO of Azercell, I think she can really contribute to that discussion. Me talking about it would not be right because it's just a bit different perspective. But female CEOs and female C-levels can talk much more, can contribute to the sake of today's discussion. Zainul Khanum, I think, frankly speaking, it's a very good question. It's a very good question. I don't think, again, as an example, last year at Shilit's conference, when I was asked to speak, and basically it wasn't less of a speech, it was more sort of a Q&A, panel discussion, and I actually told the ladies in the audience that it's 100% ladies. We only had myself, and we had, we have this triathlon, one of the triathlon federations guy who was promoting Iron Man or Iron Woman, and we actually had an Iron Woman in the audience who was about to take full Iron Man or Iron Woman challenge, and we basically had a prize of 10,000 manats to every woman who would take it. That was just it was part of our commitment to promoting sort of gender-related agenda in broadly in the market. And I told them that, frankly speaking, and getting back to the question of empowerment, I think Pasha Bank specifically, and more generally Pasha Group, getting to that, is that women empowerment is now in place. I think we should talk more about male-female balance, and this is exactly what we need to do, what we don't do possibly in a dedicated way, in a planned way, because I'm a believer if we want to do it, it should be a plan, it should be a part of a plan. So not an intention, but a plan, and there should be people who would make sure that this is all gets done. I think, by default, maybe HR function. But at this point of time, we don't promote it. We don't promote it in a way which you mentioned, Zainul Khan. However, I think indirectly I can say, just based on my gut feeling, is that having 30% of ladies in our leadership of 135 people, this is being done naturally without a specific task or objective, because this is a part of the, so every third leader within Pasha Bank is a female leader. So she wants it or not, she can, she promotes it. I think making it more of a program nature would definitely help. So I take it as a challenge, and you're absolutely right. I think my claim that I don't see a gap pay is rather, does sound arrogant, because it may be true, because I never looked into statistics, and we don't do it. But we now have an alumni from BP as our head of HR, so maybe that's exactly what I'm going to tell Zibeda to do, to put it as a part of those checks, that we basically start to analyze it, rather than rely on the fact that we don't discriminate based on a gender.
Yeah, when you don't look, you don't see, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I prefer Amin to start.
Yes, please.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Amin first.
No.
Go ahead.
Right, so
You need to put it on. Jamila, you can. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
it works. Good morning, my name is Carlos. I'm from Venezuela. I work for Schlumberger. The reason why I wanted to speak is because I felt very much identified with the story of the couple that works together. So my wife also works at Schlumberger. We've been working in 5 different continents across the years, and we've been lucky enough to be in Azerbaijan for the last 5 years. Now the challenge is she also has a very demanding job. She has an operations manager role with more than 100 people under her. We have a young family with 3 kids, a dog, and that doesn't help with the whole situation. So back to the comment you were making. So in Schlumberger, diversity is pretty much ingrained already. Our managing director, Maria, is a Colombian female in Azerbaijan, and you know, has been probably one of the best I've seen in the last decade. So that is not the issue. The issue is when it comes to crunch time, when my wife has something really demanding to do, it doesn't matter if the company is supporting or not. If within the family that doesn't work out, then she's going to be hindered. Her development is going to be hindered, even if the management is completely supporting. So what I'm trying to bring out is not only about the company, it's about changing the culture in whichever society that you're in. So in Venezuela, when I grew up, it was very patriarchal society, so the female had to take care of the kids, and I believe that is very important up to a certain age, because there are things that she could do when they were young that I couldn't do. But then there is a threshold that you pass, and that changes. So either I change my mentality so that she can grow, or she will be hindered in her career profession. And we have actually made sacrifices on both sides. I think because she had 3 kids, she had to slow down her progress a little bit. And because we have a dual career, I had to make some compromises on my side, on some assignments I could take so that we could go together. But the point I want to bring is not only about the leadership, it's not only about the commitment of companies, how you change it with the family and with society. So yeah, it was very funny to hear your story, because I relate very much to it on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is very important that you mentioned that.
Well, just make a brief comment, Carlos. Thank you for this. Yeah, mentioning a family aspect is definitely important. You know, with the 3 kids and 2 cats, I think that's a challenge. And with my wife in the audience, you know, and traveling, which unfortunately does irritate me from time to time. Jealously, not about cats and kids, maybe about myself more, but this is that's becoming a part of that balance which you try to keep now within the family rather than work-life balance. And I think I don't think there is a unique. There is no universal solution to that. So every family have to cope with this, but definitely supporting your wife who is working, doesn't matter which position she is in, is exactly, as you rightly said, is exactly what every male have to do, at least try to do, and then you know, we will definitely see more C-level females in this country and global as well. That all starts with the family. I think I absolutely agree with Carlos here.
It also makes sense with inflation. It's nice to have double income, just from the practical perspective. Maria, you want to ask a question?
Okay, very good. Oh, very good. Thanks for inviting me. Really insightful your interview. My name is Maria Junda. I'm the managing director of Schlumberger in Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan. And I think that I am going to pick up a little bit on your comments as well, Teiba, and yourself, Ma'am, and Carlos, of course. For Schlumberger, yes, it's diversity, inclusion, equality has been the topic, and has been ingrained in ourselves as a culture, as a company worldwide, right? But then when we go to the pay gap, actually Schlumberger, just a sharing experience and a sharing data, did actually a very deep study of our pay gap. And just by transparency, the objective was transparency across the world, right? And just by transparency, we were like very proud of, no, maybe we won't find any pay gap or huge. We did, okay? And it was very insightful to understand what did we find, and it was not that we are very different in the pay gap because of women and men. It was more because of our development in our women. In other words, our women have less, let's say, less responsibility roles across the whole company. Our women are not in the high levels, just exactly as Javid said. You know, at the higher level there are less, like at the middle level maybe they are more. And that's why we found that pay gap. So in other words, because I have in my level of line, we have less women, they are less paid, therefore overall now are to develop women, you know, just to be able to kind of equalize that. Now, on that sense, my question, I am not married, therefore I don't have that challenge that you guys have about all the moms, right? But I do have another challenge. And I believe that my main challenge as a woman is to make other women understand that it is possible. And that equilibrium that you were talking about, or that equality, actually exists, because majority of us as a woman, we don't believe it exists. That's why we don't even try, right? So for that comes my question, is how would you believe that this is the best approach for companies like ours that are big companies, important in Azerbaijan, really critical for Azerbaijan growth and the world, to really get into the society? Is through the schools? Is through the government? Is through us? Is through the chambers? What would be your kind of insight or advice? How would you choose to do first, Javid, to kind of start getting that culture ingrained in our minds across the whole companies, countries, etc.?
If you had a magic wand.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you, Maria, for this question. I think my answer is going to be very simple. I think you should start at the workplace, and that's what I feel. Like, if you do have that equality, diversity, inclusion at your workplace, for me that's a way how our females, both leaders and people at the junior positions, can take it further in their personal lives, in their social life, and maybe again coming to that, because I'm a banker and like many managers, like a system, so it needs to be done with a more effort systemically. So you promote that discussion, you create a few platforms. Again, for me, what we do with the Shillits, I basically mentioned it a few times, we've always been market bound. And then we heard from the shareholders is that, listen, this is a theme for the group, so can we do it intra-group? We changed the focus on intra-group. This year we're going to actually do it both. We're going to have people from outside the banking and from outside Pasha Group and within Pasha Group, and we're going to talk. Actually, I may invite. I'm trying to stay away from it and ask our C-level and senior ladies to get prepared for it. But I will definitely recommend that some of the female leaders in this audience get an invite to speak, because I think you can share what I can't, because you have that perspective as a female leader, and combine rightly your vision with what you've seen in your both professional and private lives. But I think it should start really at the workplace. So if you do it as absolute minimum at your workplace, that's, I think, a good starting point here in Azerbaijan. So they can take it. Maybe it's a rather limited view, but it should start somewhere. And again, because I, as a leader of my organization, have an influence of what the team can do when they at the workplace is one thing. I have little, influence, and I don't want to have any influence at all in their social life. I just want them to be happy while they're at the workplace. That's one of the things which our group does, is this organizational health index. So we do give an opportunity every year to every employee to speak about everything, from how they feel at the workplace, to the pay issues, to the reward system. We hear their voice. So you basically encourage them through smaller sort of tools and instruments. But ultimately for me, yeah, it starts at the workplace. So if they hear at the workplace, that absolute minimum, that would encourage them to start doing that on a family and on a social level.
As they say, don't change their world, change your world. So whatever you can control, start there. I think we have another question from a student.
Good morning. My name is Albert. I'm a student at AD University. I want to ask a question about expansion, because now that we are talking about diversity, I do believe that Pasha Bank being established in 2007, today you pride yourself as the largest private bank by equity in Azerbaijan. And I did read on your website that you have a branch in Turkey and then Georgia. I think 2014 and then 2013 respectively. I'm asking the question of expansion because with expansion comes the need for you to bring home the best practices in terms of this diversity, because obviously if you're talking about BP, because they have that global exposure, they are under the microscope when it comes to diversity. So my question is, are you planning on expanding, or you have found your niche within just Turkey, Georgia, and then Azerbaijan? Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Our shareholders had this aspiration to create what we call trade triangle. So trade triangle for Pasha Bank is Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey. And the role which we have being a corporate bank or corporate focused bank is basically promote trade flows and project-based financing amongst these three countries. And it's working very well. So ultimately, I think at this point of time, our shareholders don't have any plans for any further expansion. I think what we're trying to do is, you know, I actually don't like that word, but to synergize more amongst those three banks, you know, us as a mother company and our subsidiaries in Turkey and in Georgia. I think with, you can see primarily when you look at the Azerbaijan, Turkey, Turkey, Azerbaijan, that's a more active part of that triangle. You see a lot of investments being done by, you know, projects done by Turkish companies in Azerbaijan. You see, possibly because we are both Turkic nations, you see a lot of Azerbaijanis taking the investment opportunities in Turkey. So our role is really to promote and, for example, you know, give a boost of confidence that when you come to a new market, you have a financial partner who can help you to get yourself established as a business in that specific country. With Georgia, we try to do more because it's a neighbor country, it's a friendly country, and you know, it's also a country which basically, in a good way, links us to the European markets when we're talking about oil and gas. So we're definitely looking at to do more. But you know, at this point of time, Albert, this is where we're trying to focus, synergize, make them more efficient, that specific triangle. And geometrically, we're not looking to change that geometrical figure. We stick to triangle at this point of time.
Well, I think it's, unless we have any other questions. Yes, please.
It's a question comment. Just coming back to the C-level participation of females in general and in particular to Pasha Bank as well. We'll talk about diversity, we talk about, you know, gender diversity, we talk about sex orientation diversity, etc. What I think probably worldwide, we're not really talking about profiling, yeah? So we may say we want more females in at the C-level, but we're not changing the parameters or requirements to the C-level people. Obviously knowing that females are different from males, and I think that's, I mean, that doesn't have to be questioned or proven. We are different. We're more emotional, we make decisions differently, etc., etc. And then it turns out, like in organizations, even like EY, worldwide, for whom diversity is definitely on the agenda, at the C-level, you know, we usually have people in HR, we usually have people in marketing, etc., but we never, I mean, I don't want to say never, and it's not only about EY, it's about all the global organizations. So we tend to have people at the C-level, but frankly speaking, as a female, if I ask a question myself, I mean, what kind of roles are these? These are very important roles, but they're definitely not strategic to the business, yeah? And of course, and it's not just a feminist agenda or whatever, yeah, but it's a question of, okay, when will female deserve finally to be at strategic level? And I think the answer to that is whenever we change the profile of, you know, the business leaders that we want to have in the world. Let's say, you know, I know that sometimes a term like balanced or reserved or, you know, cold-headed are used, and that's definitely not the parameters that usually fit a female, yeah? A normal, standard female. So just my question maybe to you, Javid, as for Pasha Bank, is there any process like that going on within Pasha Bank? I mean, I'm sure there are certain requirements here that apply to all the management levels, including C-level, just to understand, is there any change going there? Because I think, you know, we never reach to the real diversity if that process is also not taking place in parallel.
basically if we are requiring something that the female cannot provide and therefore failing to kind of bring them on to the board?
I think Arzu touched upon an issue when female leaders would start, sort of influencing more on strategic decisions. I think, looking at us, we have our chief risk officer being a female. She's a part of 5-strong executive board, and she's in charge of risk, not HR, not operation, risk. And our business is now about managing risk, like in any other industry. I think capacity and capability to sell becoming less relevant. It's more about managing the risk, especially in today's volatile global geopolitical environment. So let's take an example of our CRO. When she joined the bank, in a role on a board member, and for first couple of years, she was in charge of our finances, our CFO. And then, as a part of, we operate in 3-year strategic periods. So when you operate in a 3-year strategic periods, one of the things you do, a final year of your existing strategic period is a preparation for the next 3 years. And when we did that back in 2017, and as a part of that strategic review, and as a part of a discussion of an evolving role of risk, my colleague Hayala, as a part of that strategic discussion, assumed the role of a CRO. So, for me, it basically speaks volumes, because it wasn't a vision of a single member, CEO, deputy CEO, or other fellow members from the board. It was a team discussion, and at this team discussion, we basically agreed that a CRO role is what we need, not only by law, but also by how our business model was evolving, and taking into account a complexity of the business model. And second, it was a desire by a female board member to basically take the charge of risk block, which in itself is possibly most intense part of the business because of the evolving risk. A risk which we are now trying to stress test is a nuclear strike, and we understand why. And in order to understand, so is there an expert who can say what if Russia strikes against Ukraine? What would be the consequences for a bank in Azerbaijan, largest bank with interest regionally, and of course the largest provider of credit. So the reason I mention it is because this for me is basically an evolutionary part of our business model, and you have females who are capable and willing to assume that responsibility, because it's not only your authority you get, it's primarily the responsibility which you assume. Now, coming to the question, it's a good question. We have besides five board members, we also have 4 C-levels. Those C-levels are all males. And our directors, which is about 22 or 23 directors, is predominantly males. So, when I mentioned that global research, which said that women are less inclined to make decisions, business decisions or financial industry-related decisions, less emotionally, I do want to have more females there. Do I do enough? When looking at what I told you in terms of the numbers, no, I don't do enough. So I need to be making more to see more ladies in those leadership roles. Now, coming back to our question is whether women are willing to take that responsibility is sometimes comes to their work-life balance. So, for example, when Zarina Khanum mentioned, and I felt a sort of ashamed when I say pay gap is not an issue, ladies are less inclined to come and ask for promotions because they might subjectively believe that they work usually 9 to 6, but they, in my view, may or do work more efficiently than males. And males who stay up until 9 or 10 p.m. making cigarette breaks every half an hour, are they more efficient? Maybe not at all. But ladies are less inclined, and that when Zarina mentioned it, I understand that I in my career seen less ladies coming and asking for give me more. They basically, you know, with gratefully accept what they get. Don't come, don't press, don't negotiate. Very few cases when they come and make a point. And maybe it's less about gender, more about their own story. So they feel like they are eligible for a higher pay or a higher position. I don't know if I've been able to, maybe it's been a mix of things which I mentioned, but you know, I have that challenge to do more to promote that balance, because for me that balance is not only a part of that diversity and inclusivity and equality, but I think more about having a female voice when we make decisions, when we formulate our strategy, and more importantly, when we make that strategy work.
First of all, I'm so happy you didn't say we're going to change the business profiles or job descriptions. And you talked about balance, because part of me says, and if you don't mind, just kind of a really additional comment, it's not just the profile itself, although I agree there's perception and the expectation part. It's also how do we support our women colleagues to be more assertive. I mean, a great example of asking for a pay rise, asking for the next role. I had another experience where if there's a role advertised, and I know, I mean, I worked in multiple locations. I worked in Baku, I worked in the UK, I worked in the US. The same story. Out of 10 times, our male colleagues who were not necessarily ready to apply, like 100%, they would come and apply. Female colleagues who were 100% ready, they would never apply. So, and the question was, why do you not apply? Well, because I'm not sure. But you are the most competent out of these 10 people, right? So I'm not, first of all, in my head, I moved beyond diversity. I'm on the inclusion side. The D&I now for me is how do we include, right? And I think the question is how do we, in this case, how do we work with my female, personal as a leader, how do I work with my female colleagues to help them to build that confidence, to build that assertiveness, and as a minimum, to build confidence about asking the right question.
Just how do we accommodate for the differences that we are aware of?
Absolutely.
We cannot have standard process any longer. We know that female will not apply, so we need to push them to apply.
Exactly.
Or we need to
Fully,
recreate
fully.
the process.
Absolutely agree.
That's what the question is. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Kamila Shahbaz. Well, maybe some of you know me. I'm 15 years in Baku, working for IT industry. First of all, I would like to thank you, Teva, for having me here. It's a great pleasure. Thank you, Javid, for interesting information you share with us based on your experience. And I'm very glad that I get a chance for your comments, Arina Hanum, because what I'm going to say now, it's more comments to what Teva said. First of all, I believe the AFCC did a great job today to raise this topic and have all of us to discuss this opportunity. It's definitely the right time and the right place and the right team who I believe should pioneer this issue at the country level. When we're talking about empowering women, I believe we start from empowering our girls, which goes back to family and school. Maybe if we do it, start in an early age, they will be more sure, Zarina Hanum, and they will be applying for the position. They are 100% matchable, suitable. I have my own experience. I have 11-year-old daughter. She studied in a ABC school, which stands for Azerbaijan British College, supporting with soccer. What is great about this private school, and it's absolutely doable in the public school as well. So they build this girls' leadership from the first grade they are in the school. First, my daughter, she's definitely, I mean, she's the leader, no question. I mean, it's not For 3 years, she runs the student council role in her class. Class, it's about 16 people, 5 girls and 11 boys. So boys voted for her, knowing that she will be raised the question, the issues such as, can we get the extra lunch? Or why you don't want, why do you only bring us a banana and grape, we want an apple because grape apple is good for our teeth. And every time I'm getting, every single week I'm getting the email from the school saying, thank you so much for raising this such a amazing, because again, and kids are saying, you know what, because of Maria, we get our extra lunch, or we get extra 5 minutes, or she's constantly trying to, you know, and I'm so, I think I done my job. I mean, I have only one kid, and I'm proud of that. So, Teba, you know me for 15 years. I will be always supporting you. If let's take this to the next level. Let's talk to the, not only for the corporate companies, because we more or less we know what's going on, and we can, schools, families, society, those who are, because if we can do that, and I'm sure we can do that, we will get the result, maybe not very soon, but at some point, in 5-10 years generation, we will see these girls running for highest position, not only in Azerbaijan, as well as abroad. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Can I just react on this very quickly? I know that we have to...
We have to eat.
No, we have to close it up. But no, I just wanted to say that, you know, what you've been mentioning about schools, etc. This always in my mind, and I was really thinking for a very long time how we can do that, what will be the best way to approach it, how much time I can personally dedicate to that, because I also have 3 kids, 2 cats, husband, and my job. And if I do something, I really need to be sure that I can be, as Arina Hanum said, unless we're sure that we can 100% do that, we never start. And probably here I have to compliment male approach. Maybe we should start, even if we're not qualified, not really there, and just to see where it takes us. But having said that, schools, I think, what we do for business community, we still realize that there is still gaps to discuss. And here's the best group to discuss this, because we're the most advanced, the most aware about this topic, etc. And still we have an issues to address. It shows that, you know, it's never enough. Schools, that's the big, really big plan. What I would start with, and here I'm talking with the help of my fellow members from the chamber, being UFAS University, ADA universities, maybe we should go to universities. Let's do that. We have great universities among our members, with the best kids and best students, etc. If we go there, we do something there, maybe it will be part of the job. And then, you know, it can go down, and those are future fathers and mothers, you know, and they will raise kids differently, hopefully. So they will have their mind changed. So schools, I hear you. Yes, that's probably where it should be done. It's overstretched in terms of our reality. But if we can do what is on our arm reach, being the universities, which are very cooperative and very open to get all these kind of programs. Please tell me if I'm not saying the right thing, and if you don't want this to happen. This is my question to my colleague from UFAS. But I guess if we start at least through the platform of our universities, let us think about it, and I think this is another task for Zida. Also have a kid, a very demanding husband, very demanding board members, and you know, lots of events, very scarce resources. So let's add this to the agenda, because if we can think about a plan or a program that we can develop, I think all our members like Pasha Bank, Azerbaijan, and other companies will support us, and we have a lot to share. Really, we can do it easily. We have so many people here. Just sitting here in this room will be enough to cover, I think, a yearly events program for both universities, which are the large universities. And then our colleagues from the universities can take it further to other universities, speak to their colleagues. We can include others and so on and so forth.
Schools, by the way. And the university, at some point, they can take care of the schools.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, if I hear you, and I really feel that that's where we have to start. So I'm doing this pre-sounding. We'll get there, and we're actually keeping in mind all of your comments. So we'll come to you and say, now you have to share, now you have to contribute. And that's what we want to do. Now please do what you declared you want to achieve. So we'll catch you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Javid, thank you very much. Mentioning
Thank
two
you.
cats actually really touched my heart.
Make it personal.
Thanks to Carlos, he
Very
mentioned his
personal
dog, so
for me.
I had to mention my cats.
I have a question. Those cats belongs to you or belongs to somebody else?
No, they belong to our daughter, to our little one. She's the boss.
Well, on this positive note of cats and girls being the boss, we'll close the official part. Please enjoy your breakfast, and I will approach the tables if you want to ask the question in a smaller group. I'm happy to discuss these issues. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Tebahan, thank you very much for this opportunity. I have to apologize. I have to run to another meeting right now. So I'll be happy not to take questions, but if there is anything I can offer more on less on gender, more on credit, let me know. I'm at your disposal. So with those apologies, absolutely. With those apologies and an agenda to follow up, I think I'll get back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.